Your mind isn't a neutral camera. It's a rigged jury primed to convict every idea that threatens your comfort. Today, we meet its 5 worst tricks. Here's why this matters and why you can't afford to scroll past. Every day, we make choices based on what our brain tells us is safe or true. But when your mind is running on autopilot, filtering out doubts, twisting facts, and echoing only what feels good, you end up locked in a worldview that might be costing you your biggest opportunities: honest relationships, real intellectual freedom, even your own integrity. And the next few minutes, we're not just naming those mental traps, we're showing you the real world fallout of living unexamined. Because once you spot these tricks, you can sidestep them and finally start building a life rooted in curiosity, not comfort. Let's dive in. Trap number 1, confirmation bias. Trap number 1 is confirmation bias. Your brain's personal search engine, programmed to index only the evidence that backs up what you already believe. Every time you Google a hot topic, like proof of X, or was Y real, or does Z work, and you stop after page 1, that's not research. That's your brain auto-completing the answer that you already wanted. I remember talking with a friend who was sure their belief was bulletproof. They typed in evidence against X, but only clicked on the articles that ended up backing X. Now, when I called them out, they swore they'd looked into it, and they literally had, for 3 minutes and 15 seconds. That's confirmation bias, the silent filter that drowns out every doubter. In your journal or notes app, write down one belief you've only ever searched to support. Then, and this is the key, hunt down one solid statistic or peer-reviewed study that challenges it. No excuses. You're mining for truth, not comfort. Breaking this filter is the first step toward genuine openness. Because if you never see the evidence that contradicts you, you'll never have to question yourself or evolve. And please, keep in mind that I said evidence, not anecdote. The plural of anecdote is not data. All right, now that we've pried off the first filter, let's move on to trap number 2, motivated reasoning, where desire hijacks your logic. Trap number 2 is motivated reasoning, when what you want to be true hijacks your logic and writes its own script. Your emotional needs, such as safety, community, and identity, become the director of your thought process. Instead of following evidence, you'll cherry pick or reinterpret facts to those needs intact. I have a friend so wrapped up in our online wellness tribe that any critique feels like an attack on her self-worth. When a nutritionist published a study debunking their miracle claims, she slammed it as shady science and refused to even read the abstract. It wasn't stupidity, it was loyalty in disguise. When belonging is on the line, you'll brandish insults and erect walls around your tribe rather than let the truth slip in. Think of a time you rejected a fact because it made you uncomfortable. In your notes, answer, what emotional need was that protecting? And how might acknowledging that discomfort lead you closer to the real answer? Spotting when your desire hijacks your reasoning means you're no longer a passenger on your own mental ride. You can choose to follow the evidence, even if it leads you out of your comfort zone. Now that we've exposed the bias of what you want, let's see how your mind does full-on gymnastics to erase any clash with reality. Welcome to trap number 3. Trap number 3 is cognitive dissonance, your brain's emergency contortion routine to erase any clash between what you believe and what you know. When new facts threaten your core beliefs, your mind doesn't update, it does backflips. You redefine terms, shift goalposts, or invent caveats so you never actually have to change your mind. This plays out most clearly with the idea of God. Many start with the God of the Bible, a governing, intervening, loving deity. The moment someone spots a glaring biblical inconsistency, like the command to annihilate entire Canaanite cities, poof, that same God morphs into an abstract principle of love that never actually issues orders. I had a friend who swore the Bible was inerrant until he read those genocide passages. Rather than question his faith, he simply insisted those verses are now poetic metaphor and claimed that the real God lives only in our hearts. That's cognitive dissonance and motivated reasoning at work, redefining your beliefs until the contradiction vanishes. Now, in your journal or notebook, write one belief that you've subtly reworded to dodge uncomfortable evidence. How would you state that belief if you couldn't redefine it? Challenge yourself to face it head on. No mental gymnastics allowed. Once you catch yourself flipping reality to stay comfortable, you reclaim the power to face truth. And real growth begins where comfort ends. All right, we've exposed the mind's acrobatics. Next is trap 4, the availability heuristic, where your brain elevates the loudest stories above solid data. So, trap 4 is the availability heuristic, your brain shortcut that treats the most dramatic or recent stories as if they're the most common. When you hear a sensational story, say a miracle healing clip or an extreme headline, your mind inflates its real-world frequency. Dry statistics vanish into the background because they're not amusing or shocking enough to stick. I once saw a clip of someone claiming a supernatural cure, and suddenly I knew miracles were everywhere. But when I actually checked reliable health databases, the numbers told a very different story. Disconnect, total availability heuristic in action. Write down one vivid story you lean on to prove your point. Then track down 3 solid data points. Studies, stats, reports that either confirm or contradict it. Balance the narrative with the numbers. If you only remember what shocks you, you'll build beliefs on anecdotes instead of evidence. And again, the plural of anecdote is not data. Balancing story and statistics is how you keep your perspective grounded. We've tamed the loudest lies. Now let's tackle the herd mentality. Next up, trap number 5, social proof and echo chambers. Trap number 5 is social proof and echo chambers. Your brain's crowd following button, primed to believe whatever everyone else is nodding at. When you see a post with thousands of likes or shares, you think if so many people agree, it must be true. At that moment, you're skipping the hard part, critical thinking, and then you hit that share button without a second glance. I once shared an infographic because everyone in my community did. When I finally interrogated the claims, half the stats were cherry-picked, but by then, the herd had already moved on. That's the echo chamber in action, convincing you that consensus equals truth. Here, write down 3 beliefs wildly held in your circle that you've never questioned, who benefits if we all just agree on those, and one action you'll take this week to challenge at least one belief, an article you will read, a conversation you'll have, or a podcast you'll listen to. Don't skip this. Naming the herd is the first step to going solo. Breaking free from the herd is how you reclaim your voice. Real inquiry isn't crowdsourced, it's self-driven. All right, bonus hack time. Let's tackle the final trap, negativity bias. Bonus trap number 6 is negativity bias. Your brain's built-in alarm system that weighs threats way heavier than neutral or positive info. Evolution wired us to spot danger first, so negative stories, scandals, and threats scream for attention. The problem? Our modern world is mostly safe, but our brains still treat rare negatives as if they're everywhere. I used to binge read every expose of police brutality and systemic racism, soaked up outrage like candy. Meanwhile, hundreds of effective, integrity-driven groups flew under my radar. My view of the world skewed toxic because negativity bias was running the show. In your journal or notes app, pick one negative story you rehearse about a movement, group, or idea. Then list 2 neutral or positive examples that you've ignored, and then reflect, how does balancing your view change your perspective? When you overfocus on negatives, you miss the full picture, good, bad, and mundane. Recognizing this bias lets you see ideas and people as they really are, not as your alarm system wants you to believe. Before we leave today, I want to talk about the high cost of unchecked bias. All these mental traps aren't just personal glitches. They've shaped the worst chapters of our shared story. Confirmation bias drove witch hunts across Europe and New England. Ordinary people convinced they saw devilish signs because they looked for evidence that fit the horror stories whispered by their peers. Motivated reasoning fueled propaganda in 2 world wars, turning entire nations into echo chambers of hate. And cognitive dissonance kept scientists denying clear data, from resisting heliocentrism to stalling climate action, costing generations of progress and countless lives. The availability heuristic meant every scandalous anecdote became proof enough to justify persecution or policy overreach. Social proof blinded societies to injustice. If everyone else was cheering it on, it must be okay. From Jim Crow laws to exclusionary immigration bans, echo chambers have written laws that hurt millions simply because a loud majority decided those stories felt true. Now, imagine a world where we're awake to these tricks, where leaders face data, not dogma, where communities debate evidence instead of amplifying outrage, where science and policy evolve together because we actively seek out disconfirming facts. Picture classrooms that teach bias hacks as core curriculum, boardrooms that demand devil's advocate audits, and online spaces that reward curiosity over clicks. This vision isn't pie in the sky. It starts with each one of us using the hacks you've just learned. It means debating your circle when you spot an echo chamber, insisting on data over drama, and pushing for openness even when it's uncomfortable. Because every time you choose truth over comfort, you chip away at centuries of collective error and build a society that values integrity above all else. That's the high stakes payoff of debiasing your brain. Now let's bring it home. You've now met the 6 traps and you own the hacks to outsmart each one. But here's the real test. Pick one trap, anyone, and use its hack today. Then come back and tell me in the comments which trap you tackled, which hack you tried, and what you learned about your own mind. If you're committed to a life built on curiosity instead of just comfort, make this a daily or weekly practice. Share this video with someone who needs to break free from their mental jury. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss a brain-sharpening mission. Because a world of sharp, honest thinkers doesn't just happen on its own. It begins with each of us choosing truth over ease. Now, if you're encouraged by and curious about the work that I'm doing, consider getting connected by joining our Patreon, YouTube membership program, or our free Bridge City 101 How We Change the World course. You can even join the wait list for our upcoming mastermind community. Members and graduates get access to daily voice notes that promote critical thinking, and we're now rolling out our monthly meetups and calls, and certain levels get all of my digital content guides for free, like the one that dropped today to accompany this video. So there you have it. What are you waiting on? Well, that's it for today. Until next time, keep rising.